Paul, speaking a couple of days after the opening game against Wimbledon, you probably watched clips back, watched the full game back. Just further reflections on what you made of Saturday?
Yeah, look, it was great to get the season underway. Wasn't quite the result we wanted. I think everyone that goes into that first game is hoping for a victory and get the first 3 points on the board. You know, we didn't, but we got the next best thing, as in we got a point. I think a well-deserved point, certainly. There wasn't loads in the game, but probably, you know, they had the biggest chance, certainly with a penalty, as it turned out. But for us, I think we had a lot of control in the game. Would just like to try and create a few more, you know, better opportunities, sort of closer to goal. I think we had some good attempts from distance. We hit the post ourselves from a good save. So they were, I think, like many games that you watch throughout the season, there were some positives. And even in a defeat, it's not always everything's wrong, but it's very easy to get that mindset when you've been through something. But some good bits, but certainly obviously things we can do better and improve on. At the same time, I think you have to give Wimbledon some credit. They clearly came with an idea of how they wanted to approach the game, and you know, in the end, I think they were sort of really happy with the point. So yeah, we move forward, try and improve on some of the things that we've seen, but really pleased with the clean sheet, and I think in the main that was probably deserved. The penalty's a big moment. Really pleased for Jake and Steve in terms of the work that they've done, and you know, a little bit of sort of credit to them, certainly. But overall, yeah, I'm as I said after the game of the weekend, I think looking at the results and seeing some of the goals that went in against some of the teams in the league, that there'll be managers that were a little more unhappy than myself.
And just with Jake, as much has been made of of having real competition for places in goal this season as well.
Yeah,
it can only be good for his confidence, that save and the clean sheet, can't it?
He's been really confident, or certainly that's how he's looked since he's walked through the door for that first day pre-season. I know Steve's been really happy with him, really impressed, and he's looked very assured. You know, I think in training, sometimes the lads have made comments about like telling him to do one basically when they're trying to score past him, because he's proved difficult to beat. And you know, I think I've said from the start, I think there's a keeper there. One, he's got to try and stay fit, which is partly our so we've got to be conscious of that ourselves, but also maybe just a little bit of fortune. And then also he's got to make sure that his concentration and application is there, you know, constantly. And hopefully he'll get his rewards. But as you said, Harvey be behind him at the minute. He's certainly a nice place for me as manager to be with those two keepers in the squad.
You touched on a couple of injuries off the back of Saturday's game to Otis Carr and Donovan Wilson.
Yeah.
What's the situation with them?
Yeah, both. I think we perhaps looking at the week leading into the Walsall game, where at the minute at least that's sort of the hope that they'll be back on the training pitch then, and perhaps back involved. Otis has got a calf problem, and Donovan's a hamstring injury. So they both, you know, shouldn't be too long. Always cautious with saying that, because then all of a sudden we've got this date that everyone wants to sort of, you know, really focus on. And yeah, there has to be an element of focus, but again, being in this long enough, sometimes it doesn't quite go to plan. It'd be great if anything was sooner. But certainly as we speak, that's sort of the time frame that we're looking at.
And just looking ahead at the game tomorrow, the momentum at the start of the season and getting that first win must be a big driver in terms of approaching this Mansfield game.
Yeah, it's the cup, so it's a different competition obviously, but we want to try and progress. There's no doubt about that. You know, the team that I select, whether it's the same at the weekend, whether it's a different one, it will be to try and win the game. We know that's going to be difficult. I think we could have, I know it's someone from our league, but at the same time I think we certainly could have had an easier draw. So we had some really good games against Mansfield last season. Good games of football, I think quite good for the neutral. Not loads of goals, but at the same time I thought there was, you know, entertaining games, and we know that Nigel will want his team to play good football. So looking forward to the game. And as you said, you're always wanting to try and get that first victory, but if it comes tomorrow, there'll still be that we want to get the first league victory. So there's always something to tick off. But yeah, it was nice to be involved in competitive games again, because pre-season, you know our approach, we know we never want to take it easy, but at the same time there's always a little bit of an edge missing, and I think you saw that at the weekend, that suddenly that game looks very different than anything we've been involved in throughout pre-season. That's no fault of our own, realistically. It's just the reality of suddenly, 3 points being at stake.
And touching on that as well, there's probably a handful of players who were regulars last season who didn't take to the field on Saturday. Do you envisage making any changes for tomorrow's game?
I don't envisage certainly making many changes. Whether I make a couple, I'll make my mind up after training today. I think from my point of view, I'm historically certainly, I think Nigel's made quite a few changes to his team, but the squad that they have, I'm not sure that it'll certainly be a team that he could put out in a league game. I'm sure of that, and still be happy with. But for ourselves, I think we know how they will look to set up. That might change, in fairness, because certainly last season they were very adaptable. But for us, I just want to have a look at training this morning. There's also the new ruling where players, we looked at the physical data after the game, and some of those were really high, and ultimately they play an extra minutes, so it is going to be more physically demanding this season. And again, although we've had pre-season, you get to that first game, we've got Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. It's a frantic start, and I think there is an element of certainly got to be mindful of it. Now, whether again those changes are from the start of a game or whether it's the subs that we can utilise, it's something that we certainly will be observing and trying to. It might contribute to a decision, shall we say. It won't be the be all and end all, but it's something, like I said, that we're certainly looking at as a footballing department.
And on the stoppage time, does it change preparation for games, knowing that players might have to play an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes?
Well, I heard a few players talk about it over the weekend, and how hard it was. And it's like going into an extra time almost, from in-cup games. So does it change preparation? I wouldn't say it changed preparations, but like I said, I think we have to be conscious of the minutes that they've played. We didn't have Harvey Rodgers last season, but we looked at, for example, how much distance he covered at the weekend, and that's as a centre-back that, in general, are kind of, your centre-backs and your keeper are the people that we don't tend to pay too much attention to, and aren't as sort of concerned with, the lesser distance for them, the better, probably, in an ideal world. So we've got to look at these things, and I think Mondays, potentially for the lads that have played, might have to be, tapered back even further than perhaps they have been in the past.